Hi, welcome back. My name is Ada, and I'm just a girl who likes to read. So it is now the end of January, so it's time for January reading wrap up time. So before we begin, can I just say how long January felt? Like I felt like I aged 5 years throughout January, and I'm so glad we're transitioning into February, as I need to make it feel like time is passing because I felt like January I felt like I did nothing. Well, not nothing, but I felt like so little was going on, and like I felt like time was going by really slowly, that I just needed something to happen. I needed it to end. So I'm glad that's ending. So I have read 8 books in the month of January, but with a bunch of manga and manhwa in between. However, because as in I pretty much read like over like 10, 15 manga manhwa in the month of January. However, if I explain to you each and every single one, we're going to be here forever and ever. So I decided to pick the top two, or the two that basically changed my brain chemistry, or just literally impacted me in a way I'm like, wait, this is actually really good. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, so the first book I read in January was none other than Fourth Wing by the one and only Rebecca Yarros. I feel like I don't need to explain the plot to you. Like, I feel like this book has been circulating the internet so much. Like, there's someone else that can explain it to you. Like, you know what this book about? Dragons, college. You already know. So, but first, before I tell you why I decided to reread this, as it is a reread, but luckily for Prejudice, I would like to say that this is my very few and very few flexes that I would like to give. So for sedition copy. Anyway, so in preparation for Onyx Storm, I did a reread of Fourth Wing, and I did the graphic audio version of it. It First of all, the graphic audio version was really good. Um, of course, if you don't know what graphic audio is, it's basically where a bunch of voice actors come together to recreate you know it's like their tagline is a movie in your mind, and that's literally what it is. So they add like sound effects, they had a whole bunch of sound effects, and the voice actors literally act out their hearts and whatnot. So yeah, highly recommend the graphic audio version. So reread Fourth Wing, did the graphic audio version of it. I gave it 4 stars. When I originally read this, I also gave it 4 stars. And, it's a solid book. Like, it does the job for me. I was entertained. I liked the concept, everything. Like, Violet and Xanon, love them. Love. Okay, next book I read was on Kindle, and it was If You Give a Billionaire a Bride by Anne Anderson. So it is the third book in the Aspen Grove series, and you follow two childhood best friends who reunite after 15 years, and they somehow get together again. They have a couple of drinks. They have one too many drinks, and all of a sudden they got married in Vegas, and now they're officially married. So they have to basically lie to both their families saying that they're married and they're happily married after not seeing each other for 15 years. So that's basically the concept of it. I really enjoyed the book. However, there was like little to no like conflict. So I was like, there were times I was a little bored. I will have to admit, like, it was fine. Like, there wasn't anything like special about the book. So gave it 3 stars. Like, it was chill. I didn't like love it or hate it. Like, it was fine. Moving on now. The next book I read was a reread of Iron Flame, because again, we gotta prep for Onyx Storm. So I also did the graphic audio version of this, and first of all, this book is chunky. I didn't realize how chunky it was until I realized how much longer the graphic audio version is, and rereading this was just a total trip. Initially, when I first read this, I gave this 2 stars because first of all, it's way too long. Like, I think you could have shaved this down like an extra 100 pages or like maybe even 200 pages. There was just so much unnecessary conflict that just made me more angry than excited. I mean, what's up with that? I don't want to be angry, and I would rather, and I would like to be at peace. However, the entertainment factor was there, so I was like, you know what? I'm just here for a good time, not a long time. Like, that's what it was giving, but it just pissed me off the entire time. So initially, when I first read this, I gave it 2 stars because it was a total dumpster fire. It was a total train wreck, in my opinion. And the graphic audio version made it a lot better, so that's why in my reread I gave it a 3, just because the graphic audio was that good to make me bump it up a star. So, I mean, what can you do? What can you do? Because the graphic audio is actually really, really good, and when it comes out for Onyx Storm, catch me reading it, I suppose. Okay, next book I read. January is by Olivia Blake. I feel like this is unnecessary for the month of January, as the title says, where this is basically an anthology of a bunch of love stories that involves magic, witches, all that stuff. It's like I would say this is a very cozy anthology to read, especially like again because it's called January's. You should probably read it next year in January. There was a bunch of stories in here that were like hit or miss, and there were a couple that I was confused about. However, because I'm such a biased fan, but also I am enamored, in love with Olivia Blake's writing style, 4 stars. My favorite story is the first story called The Wish Bridge, I believe. So, just a heads up if you guys want to read it. But the rest of the stories are pretty good. So, again, some of them are hit or miss, but the one that stood out to me was the first one in this anthology. So, yeah. And then after I read Lights Out by Navessa Allen. Yes, the Stalker one, guys. I read the Stalker romance, and I did a hybrid read of it where I read it on my e-reader and I listened to the audiobook. So shout out to Libby for getting me the audiobook. Love that. And I would have to say, I gave it 4 stars. It was super entertaining. It was super fun. I had a great time. Our main lead, Josh, so funny, so unhinged. Love to see it. And I forgot the female character's name. Well, I don't remember character's name, but you know what I mean. But again, she was so funny. She was so real. She was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm falling for my stalker. I can't believe I'm falling for him." Again, that's so real of her. Like, same, same. And she works as a trauma nurse, and she's obviously, because of the trauma, she's like, developing like these weird kinks, I believe, and she's very much into like if she had basically if she had TikTok and she was searching out like masked men like thirst traps or whatever, which by the way, side note, I saw TikTok say that they were all like thirst traps, like basically women posing as men, and honestly, that's as if I couldn't love women more. Anyway, we're getting a little sidetracked here, but our girl is a little traumatized. She has a lot of kinks and she has a thing for masked men. And Josh decides to play into that as he is literally and utterly obsessed with her. At one point, I didn't give this a 5 stars. The reason is because I was in for a silly, goofy time. Like, I'm here to have fun. I'm here for a good time. But at one point, the plot started kind of getting, how should I say this in a lightly, a little ridiculous. Mini spoiler, somehow the mafia gets involved, and I did not know how I felt about that plot line. It was like at one point it was like, okay, we're like going somewhere, and then all of a sudden, mafia. This is a little ridiculous for even for me. So again, that was like the only qualm I had where like there was like weird plot lines going on, and I'm here like just just stick to the thing. As for spice level, take this for someone who's read like a lot of manga, manhwa, and like a lot of spicy books. Like a lot of things don't phase me very much. So I would say I'd give this like like a level 3 in spice. take that as you will, but also search up trigger warnings. I'm pretty sure they are at the front of the cover, at the front of the book, but take that as you will. Up next, the one and only Onyx Storm. The fact I have to live with knowing that the way this book ended, how do I don't know if I fully moved on, which the answer, by the way, is no. I have not moved on. Eventually we'll move on when I take off my baby girl Ryerson and Onyx Storm bracelet. But at the meantime, we haven't moved on yet. Also, sprayed edges. So, if you have watched my Onyx Storm reading vlog, you would know that I absolutely adore this book. And you should probably go watch that vlog. No spoilers in this house, by the way. And I would say I gave this 5 stars because 1, I felt the writing was elevated. 2, I was giggling and kicking my feet the entire time. The way I rate things is that it's literally based on vibes. Like, if the vibe is good, the vibe is good. And in here, the vibes were good. And dare I say it, this is Riddick's book. Rebecca, you did your big one with Riddick in this one. Listen, I know everyone talks about Xaden. I know, because listen, I be talking about him too. However, Riddick, oh my god. As I have mentioned in my other video, I was initially a Sawyer girl. However, Riddick, you have won me over. I am officially a Riddick stan. Anyway, but yeah, 5 stars. Up next, I read Forever Wild by Rebecca Jinchak. You'll start to see a trend where, like, after fantasy read, I have to read a contemporary novel. The reason is for that is I feel like, for me personally, like, any contemporary romance is like a good, like, palate cleanser for me before I get into next fantasy. It's kind of like almost like a wipe your brain, like you know, like a little mental break before jumping even more hoops and hurdles to read another fantasy. That's my thing. Anyway, sit up. I read Forever Wild by Rebecca Jinchak, and it is, I believe, the last book in the Wildcat Hockey series, which, by the way, any Rebecca Jinchak book has my entire heart. I love her stuff so much. Like, it's just simple, it's easy, it does the job. Like, her characters are lovable, and you're here for a great time. Also, hockey. That's all I need to say. So you follow Everly and Jack, where Jack, he has been in a really bad accident for his last game towards ACL. Yikes. That's a really bad, team. And he is trying to go through recovery, but he's being very stubborn about it. So Everly jumps in per her brother's request, Tyler, who we've met in her previous books, if you ever read them, but if not, now you do. You should probably go read them. And she comes over and he's like, your typical grumpy man, doesn't want any help, super stubborn, and she is very bright, bubbly, very energetic. Love me a grumpy sunshine. I will eat that up every single time. And she comes over to help him out, and of course, he doesn't want her help. He's a man, obviously. But she helps him open up and ask for help. And along the same time, they both like help each other and basically heal from like their traumas and all that stuff. So it was a good read. I needed a little palate cleanser. 4 stars. Easy 4 stars. Like, I just needed something that was feel good after I was wrecked from Onyx Storm, so it was perfect. The next book I read is Never Missed by Haley Warren. Let me tell you about the backstory of this book. So initially, anytime I scroll TikTok, there's always these out of context quotes or like out of context moments that authors will post. And this one caught my eye, as it was Reverse Grumpy Sunshine. He's a football player, she's a doctor. Being a woman in STEM, I have to read it. It's obvious. What I did not expect is that this is such a gem of a book. I wasn't ready to cry. I wasn't ready to feel sad, but This book made me feel all the feels, and it was so good. If a book makes me cry, it's an automatic 5 stars. Like if I feel any emotion or like any pain or like just start like sobbing my eyes out, automatically 5 stars because the impact that book has on me. Oh, did not realize it was gonna come from me like that. So you have our football player. His name is Beckett. He's a kicker, and he misses a very important field goal. Hence his name, Never Miss. See, I love it when they mention the title. I love it when a book mentions a title. So in order to improve his image, because the public literally hates him now, he goes to the hospital to volunteer, and he meets Dr. Roberts, her Dr. Roberts, who is known as the almost like the ice queen at the hospital, as she's not very known to be like very warm or very personable to like other doctors and whatnot. And then they have this conversation in an elevator, and everything changes for them. They help each other out. They heal each other, and they understand that, you know what, you are seen, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to, be sad about your feelings. And especially for Beckett, create boundaries. Create boundaries. That's the biggest lesson for him. It was the biggest lesson where creating boundaries, it's not a bad thing. As for Dr. Roberts, her first name being Greer, it's okay to, let people in and to trust people again. And of course, not to be crazy hard on yourself for something that wasn't even your fault. And again, and I resonated with those messages so much. I love, love, love this book. So good. I would highly recommend if you're in need for a sports romance with a little something extra. Speaking of a little extra, this particular book reminded me of Unsteady by Payne Corinne, which, by the way, love her stuff. So if you want something similar to that, I say Unsteady by Payne Corinne because, they both have really good mental health representation, and it feels even more than just your typical silly little romance book. It's a lot more than romance book. I felt like their stories came first before the romance, if that makes sense. Speaking of before the romance, the last book I read, speaking of, the reason, so when this video comes up, it'll be, I believe, hopefully sometime early February. The reason why I was so late, because I wanted to finish this book so badly, because I needed to talk to you guys about it. It's called A Bun Me for Two by Trinity Nguyen. Of course, because Miss Trinity is Vietnamese and I'm also Vietnamese, I gotta support my girl. I gotta read this book. Second of all, look how cute these sprayed edges are, by the way. It's all pink. And it's a YA book, super short, super short. And I love, love, love this book. So this is basically about two girls. One is named Vivi and the other is Lan. Vivi is from America, and she does a study abroad trip to Vietnam because she wants to uncover her family's history, as her mom is very reluctant to talk about Vietnam. And she's like, I want to discover Vietnam and look at Saigon like for myself. As for Lan, she runs a food blog called A Banh Mi for Two, and it's a very popular food blog, which is how Vivi decided to go to Saigon for the first time to eat food. Because in every culture and humanity as a society, we will always connect through food. So this is perfect for that. And this for such a short book, this is like 250. Like, how long is this book? It's like less than 250 pages. It's like, yeah, it's like 220 pages, and it covers so much, from having like identity crisis, like, so example, Vivi struggling with her Vietnamese American identity, to Lan having to be basically having eldest daughter syndrome, as I would like to call it, where she feels like she has to shoulder all the burden, she has to shoulder everything. She doesn't know if she wants to do what she wants because she has to take care of her mother, as her father did pass away very recently. And yeah, this is just so impactful. This is just so good. I can't wait to read Trinity's next work. This is oh, this is gonna have a special place in my heart. And reading this the entire time, something that I really appreciate is that um all the words in this book were most of a good chunk of it was Vietnamese. Like you can there were the accents and everything because I feel like in most books like they won't. I feel like in most books they won't even like put in the accents as French colonialism impacted the Vietnamese language and all that stuff. So a little history lesson for you there. But yeah, so good, and this got me craving so much banh mi. I had to go get one. So read this, and if you crave banh mi, you should probably go get one. And during all of these books, I read a whole bunch. Like I said earlier, I read a whole bunch of manga and a whole bunch of manhwa. However, like I said earlier, if we go through every single one, we're gonna be here forever, and a good chunk of them were rereads. So here are the two that impacted me the most. The first one being called The Ripoff Izakaya. The Ripoff Izakaya is basically about this izakaya who's not it's not your typical izakaya. It's they basically serve their customers a bunch, like not a bunch, but more not as traditional foods as you would get at an izakaya, making interesting combinations and applying, different cooking tactics to that and pairing it with a really good sake. And it's basically your typical slice of life manga where you have the owner of the izakaya talk to her customers or her regulars about their problems, about like the daily life in that little neighborhood and stuff like that. And I needed a slice of life manga, and this was the one that I needed. Anything regarding a slice of life and regarding food, that is up my alley. It's the perfect palate cleanser to all like the crazy books that I've been reading, and I love it so much. Also, I was not ready for the subtle, very very subtle, slow burn romance plotline. Because initially, when you first meet the two characters that eventually do get together, you're like, okay, maybe like they're starting out as friends. But as you keep reading it, you can feel the chemistry and you can feel the tension between the both of them, and you're like, when are you guys going to get together? Like, I can't stand it. Like, they're literally perfect for each other. Like, come on, guys, we gotta get it going. But once they do get together, literal magic, so good. So the second manhwa I read is Nerd Project. It was recommended to me by a friend named Jen. I feel like her and we have very similar manhwa taste, specifically BL manhwa. So I knew that once I got the recommendation, we're in for a good time. Yeah. So I'm not gonna lie to you. Whenever I read manhwas, mangas, and just like books in general, like not books, specifically manga manhwa, I forget names so easily. So I'm gonna refer them as the blonde guy and the brunette, or our nerd. So this is basically about a guy, the blonde in the photo, where basically he gets broken up by his girlfriend because his girlfriend was like, "Oh, I don't like jock types anymore. I'm into hot nerds." Like, think of like Andrew Garfield in Spider-Man 2 type of nerd. That's what we're thinking of. So, but also I kind of relate, but at the same time, he didn't deserve that. Like, that was kind of rude. Like, anyway, opinions aside, he then stalks this guy who is your typical like hot nerd. Like, he's really tall, he is brunette, like he has glasses, but if you take off the glasses, all of a sudden, like, visual change. I will never understand where like literally like you have glasses on and as soon as you take them off, like girl, you just look the same. Anyway, aside from that, aside from that, he stalks him trying to figure out like what's the appeal of like a hot nerd, and basically stalks him like crazy. And our nerd, he finds out that our jock has been stalking him and gets a little creeped out. But remember, but our jock is broke. So when he breaks up with his girlfriend, he moves out and he moves to the college dorm. And guess who his roommate is? Their nerd. On initial meetup, they automatically hate each other as they have, you know, different living preferences. Our nerd prefers to be alone and quiet, while our jock is very sociable. He is an extrovert to the core. Like, I'm talking, he has a lot of friends and whatnot. But as they start to get to know each other better, they ask the question, am I gay? Am I? Like, they're cheering between the lines of, like, trying to figure out if they're bisexual, or they're like, yeah, I like men a lot. So there's that. And season 1 has ended, and can I just say that ending for season 1 was absolutely diabolical. Absolutely diabolical. Because if you've read it, you know the ending for season 1 of Nerd Project was absolutely unnecessary and absolutely diabolical, and the fact that I have to wait is actually a crime in itself. Anyway, I cannot wait for season 2, and this is basically the reverse jock and nerd, where you assume the nerd is the one on the more shy side. Wrong. The nerd is actually very, very confident. I would say our nerd, he's a top, guys. He's a top, and our jock theater kid, he is a total bottom. He is a bottom. Again, I would say, in most stories, your nerd is usually on the bottom and your jock is on the top, because, like, power dynamic, obviously. But, nope, this is the reverse, and it's actually so, so good. I cannot stop recommending it. So, anyway, that's my January wrap up. I can't wait to see what February has in store, as it is the season for love. So hopefully there's going to be expect to see a bunch of more romantasy and more romance books and romance manga, manhwa, obviously, as if I don't read them on the daily. But yeah, that's it. Anyways, I'll see you next time. Bye!